Hello and welcome to my video on how to create the helicopter base. So there's a couple things I want to share with you. First thing is this is made with all primitive primitive three-dimensional geometric shapes. And primitives basically are as simple as they come. It's cylinders, rectangular prisms, cubes, pyramids, spheres, and toruses. So it is the basics of creating 3D objects. It is based on those primitive shapes. So what you see here is our fuselage of our helicopter. You have your tail, and then you have your peg for the main rotor and your peg for your rear rotor. So this is very simple. This is almost like a little tinker toy. What I'm looking for in the end is you take this concept and turn it into something a little bit more complicated. So you can see that this still has the exact same stuff. It has the pegs for the rear rotor, the peg for the top, the main rotor, and the fuselage, the tail. You know, all I'm doing is taking that same exact concept and transferring it into something more complicated, okay, and detailed. That's what I'm looking for. And here is another example of a little helicopter. Here's the little cabin where the people are sitting. There's a little storage area back here. Maybe there could be a bench or something like that. Just to give yourself, you know, a little bit more practice with creating more complex shapes. Okay, so let's go back here and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've got a bunch of other sketches and stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and start a new one. Parts. So I'm going to start a new little part studio inside of here. Here's this little tab. And for us for today, just so you see, I can right click and change the name of this. Let's call it helicopter base. Okay. So I'm going to show you something. I'm going to turn off, usually what I do is I turn off all of these, but for now, I'm going to turn off everything except for this front plane. And I'll show you why in just a second. So I'm going to start a sketch on this front plane. And I've got my little section here. Now I'm going to start with my fuselage. And you can create this any way you want, any size you want. I'm going to stick with this, and if you want to follow along with the sizes, that's totally fine. So I'm going to make this 5 by 5. And the reason I did that was, and you'll see a little bit later, to make my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to finish this so you can see I've got my rectangle. When you go to extrude, and I choose this and I make this 5. So it's a perfect cube, 5 by 5 by 5. You can see that it comes, when I look at it this way, it comes this way away from the plane. So if you look at some of these other designs, you can see that it's almost perfectly symmetrical if you drew a line down this. And I left that front plane on so you could see that what I did was I created everything this direction and this direction. So I'm going to go back here and I'll show you how that works a little bit better. So I'm going to go down to where it says blind, and I'm going to select symmetric. Now it creates a perfect cube, and if I turn on, let's hit check. If I turn on all these other ones, show all planes, you can see that it's perfectly, the center of this cube is dead center on the origin. It's split in half by the front plane, the right plane, and the top plane. Which, if you look at this or talk about this geometrically, this is our XZ plane, I'm sorry, this is our XY plane. This is our YZ plane. And this is our XZ plane. So it is dead center on all of those planes, making the center of this the origin, okay? So what that does for me now is anything that I add to it now, I can separate and make part of these planes. And so what I'm going to do now is you can either choose to create your next sketch on this face, or you can create it on this plane. I'm going to show you using this sketch because I want to show you a function of what we're going to use for this. So I'm going to go up here, and I selected the center point, this midpoint, that allows me to bring it up to this end point here. And that gives me a perfect a circle of diameter of 5. And so that perfectly sets it up so I don't have to actually make it 5. Sorry, in the background my cat's coughing. So we're going to go to extrude now, and I'm going to bring this down this way, okay? So I can do this 2 ways. I can make this 5 because I know it's 5, or I can set where it says blind, and I can come down to up to face. And I'm going to choose this face here. Now, the reason I did that instead of creating it 5 is if I ever go back to my first extrusion and I want to change this to, let's say, 0.2, it automatically changes this to 0.2 also. Okay? So let's go back. Here's my 5 by 5 little cylinder. For now, I'm just going to hide all these planes because I'm going to show you something a little bit later in another video, how to change this. But now I've got a cube and I've got a cylinder, and that makes my fuselage. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to here to this sketch on this face, and I'm going to create another cylinder. So you start with a circle to make your cylinder. I'm going to make this 1.5 because I think this is a good size for this. And then, so for my tail, I've got my tail, and I'm going to extrude this cylinder, or this circle, and make it a cylinder. And I'm going to stretch it out. And I like to do this to give myself something that makes this proportionate. So I'm going to pull this out until I feel comfortable with about where I want my tail to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I have 10. I'm going to make this an easy number to remember, or a simplified number. I'm going to make this 10. And that looks pretty good to me. Okay, so now I'm going to hit check. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sketch here. And I'm going to use now a cube. And I'm going to use the center of this circle to make my cube. I'm going to make it the same size. Either this is called circumscribed and inscribed. So this rectangle is inscribed inside of this, or circumscribed outside of it. You can do either one if you want to. It doesn't matter to me, but I'm going to do mine 1.5 and 1.5, and that makes it perfectly in this, perfectly shaped around this rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and hit extrude here, and I'm going to choose, so I made it 1.5. I want it to be a cube. I'm also going to make this 1.5. Okay? Now, the reason I did that now is because now I have a flat spot up here to create my peg for my main rotor, and a flat spot now to create my my rear rotor, or the peg for my rear rotor. There's tons of different ways you can do this differently. I just want you to get an idea of how to use primitives to make something that is realistic, or a real object. So now what I need to do, and this is the most important part, is I need to make my pegs not just something that I can remember, but equal to each other. So I'm going to make this one equal to this, the one that goes on the back, the main one and the rear one. Since I did this, since I made this symmetrical, I can either choose this or I can move it forward a little bit using this extension line. I'm just going to go right here and I'm going to make this 1. And this makes it really easy. It's a number that I can remember. It's a rounded number that is, you know, easy for me to make the next parts that I'm going to make. Okay, and then to make it easy on myself, I'm going to make this also 1. So my cylinder now is a diameter of 1 and a height of 1. Okay, now I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to create a sketch here. I'm going to create a circle that I'm going to turn into a cylinder, and I'm going to use these extension lines here. So this is a midpoint this way and a midpoint this way, and when I come down, it meets that midpoint. Now this circle is dead center inside of this rectangle. So I'm going to make this 1, and I'm going to extrude it 1. And then you can see there is my base helicopter. That's how to get started with this helicopter project. Okay, thanks for watching.